Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Riccardo. This is my rehearsal number 2. Let's hope this works. And you can put it on YouTube. This is how to set up a cloud build trigger to auto-build Pulumi. This comes from my personal experience. I tried to do something very, very complicated. I failed. So I'm here to present you today something very, very simple and why I failed, which is also maybe interesting to you. This is for a talk I'm doing in Ghent tomorrow, on the 7th of February. A couple of words about me. I am Riccardo. I'm a former sysadmin. I love Ruby. I am a network administrator in the past, at least. Been working in Google for a few years now, and I'm passionate about reliability, SRE, DevOps, DORA, mathematics, and in my personal time, I love playing the piano, doing triathlons, caipirinhas, Amarone. As a job, I'm a developer advocate, and I treat two particular topics. One is preaching SRE DevOps and the Google way of doing things to our customers, like they go crazy for it. And in another work life, on a Monday or a Friday, I tend to write code and help my cloud build, cloud deploy, and scaffold colleagues and build something on that. But let's come back to us. So I'm going to have like a 5 to 7 minutes talking about architecture and how this works. Then I'm going to do a succulent demo. So if you didn't see Pulumi in action and Cloud Build in action, you're going to see that. And then a couple of lessons learned, what I did right, but more importantly, what I did wrong, which usually is the part that people love the most. So just to set the stage, in case you're not familiar with either Pulumi or Cloud Build, I need to say a couple of words about that. I'm pretty sure most of you know it already, but yeah. Anyway, what is Pulumi? Inference code, just like Terraform, it actually does leverage Terraform libraries behind the scenes, but it kind of abstracts it to a higher level, so it allows you to deploy anything on Azure, AWS, GCP, using your code, your language of choice: Go, Python, TypeScript, JavaScript, and C#. Ruby is not available yet, but I'm sure it will be available soon. Enterprise version, which is the SaaS version, which I'm going to show you today, as a beautiful way to manage state, UI, README. I'm going to show you what I mean, and it handles secrets pretty well. On the Cloud Build is a GCP product that handles the build part, or the CI part of the CI/CD of a CI/CD pipeline. Together with Cloud Deploy, they really integrate really well to have a full-fledged CI/CD, managed CI/CD in the cloud. You can only use one or the other, of course. For example, you have a build tool of choice, you will use that and integrate with Cloud Deploy. You have a deploy element of choice, and you want to use Cloud Build and then deploy to that, like you can use any combination. Most succulent feature of Cloud Build is that it gives you 2 hours build a day. So if you build for not more than 120 minutes a day, that's completely free. I tell you because I have a customer who leverages it. I don't know how much it lasts, but we love it. That you can do any worker shit with that. It supports GitHub and Bitbucket and Google Cloud Source repositories as repos. Let's come to our architecture, which is pretty simple. I, as a developer, commit my code on either GitHub or Bitbucket, and in 2 different ways, which we are going to see in a second. They might wake up the beast, which is a trigger on Cloud Build. And Cloud Build is going to talk to Pulumi and say, hey, my code has changed, please issue a Pulumi app. Pulumi app, if you don't know it, is the action that tells Pulumi to reconcile the current state with the desired state and practice the change in a declarative way, right? Let me add 2 things here. Sorry about this. So let me add declarative here, and let me make Cloud Source Repository in bold. Back to us. This is because it's a rehearsal. Sorry about that. What could possibly go wrong? Like, one thing that the does is create bucket, Kubernetes cluster, an application on Cloud Run. Every day I change my mind and I add new stuff, so I can keep up with maintaining this. But the most important thing is that it also creates a trigger, which is this trigger. So this trigger is both the output of my Pulumi dev and the input to my Pulumi dev environment, which is a possible cause of trouble. Let's see later on. What is the authentication flow? Well, let's look at it in a second. So when you connect the repository, you can connect GitHub with the Cloud Build app, GitHub Enterprise, GitLab, which is now in preview, Bitbucket server, Bitbucket data center, and Bitbucket cloud. I'm using the first and the last for this demo. The first, apologies for the direction, but this is needed by the UI, as you will see later. So with GitHub, you use an app with the Cloud Build app, which allows you, it's something that you tell GitHub to trust, and then all of a sudden you have an app like this middleware where you say, oh, trust repo 1, 2, 3, and allow me and allow this app to be read-only or read-write. So you have some decently granular approach to how Cloud Build can handle your GitHub repos with this Cloud Build app thingy. Whereas on Bitbucket, we don't have this. So what we can do is authenticate to Bitbucket and replicate the repository inside Google with a cloud source repository. So it does nothing else that create a Bitbucket _username _repo name. And with this nomenclature, you have a copy of this. So whenever you do a git push on Bitbucket, after a few seconds, the git push will be mirrored here. And if a change needs to trigger the trigger, it will. So this is kind of what Cloud Build sees some repos, and it has some messaging that will be sent when to wake up the trigger or to trigger the trigger. Why do I say that? Because the trigger doesn't necessarily trigger. It depends on how it's configured. Usually you configure to say, hey, if the Git repo changes in this folder of choice, like the Pulumi folder, then wake up the trigger. Otherwise, don't do it, because maybe I have 20 folders and 20 build triggers on those 20 folders. You don't want to wake them up at all time. We will see that later in the demo. And by later, I mean now. Let's now start the demo. So so I have a demo document which I don't want to show you. Okay, so I'm going to go and let me go in modality full screen so I can show you entire screen. Bingo. So now you will see everything. Bang, show terminal. So let me show the terminal and do a git status. Okay, there is nothing here. Let me ignore the vacuum, which is Bolognese for old stuff. Okay, now if I do a Pulumi app, nothing has changed, right? So you shouldn't see anything interesting. But the interesting part is that it tells you the stack name, which is dev 2023. It reconciles status, and interestingly enough, it tells you I'm going to destroy these two things, and I'm going to create these two things. Why is it? Because in my local state, I have white and black as a favorite color, which, as you can imagine, is a completely useless variable just for the demo. And it's destroying 4 Cloud Build thingies. Why is it doing this? Let's see. So I've done this. Okay. Now I'm going to code dot, and I'm going to change some code. This is something I fixed a minute ago. Config main. Okay, test build Ghent. Let's call it. Let's say that I want to rename a bucket, right? Or even better, I want to do like below. I want to format with a Pulumi stack. Or use the latest format this way, which is even more idiomatic. This didn't exist the last time I did my Python 101. Test build Ghent. So this should be populated as test build Ghent dev 23. All the configuration is here, as you can see. Let's also change the color here. Is the coat of arms of Ghent. Okay, git diff. Let's do a Pulumi preview. Or I could do a Pulumi app and just Control-C before it does and stuff. So that should change the color, and that should also destroy a bucket and create the Ghent one and create the bucket -dev23, right? Beautiful. Let's, instead of doing Pulumi app, which I just showed you before, I do a git commit -a-m hello demo recorded demo v2, because this is my second record, and then git push. Now, once I do this, I want to show you two things. First, what is going on the Google side and what is going on the Pulumi side. So on the Google side, this should trigger a build, and in fact, it's happening right now. We could stay here, but we won't for the moment, while you can observe the build in a tail-f kind of things, you see? You can actually optimize this by telling Cloud Build to recycle the same image, so it will be caching the apt-get install kind of things. In this case, the fact that Python needs to download a number of packages to work. So that can actually be sped up. Let me show you what happens on the UI side. So this is Python dev23. I really love this part here. So this will show you the resources that we have, which is a list of stuff. Hello Ghent from dev23. And it also can be seen as a graph view. In this case, it's not very interesting. It's just like a silly array. But you could have the composition. For example, you could have a component which has 5 children. You use 3 instances of that component. Then you will have 3 components with 5 children each, and this would be beautiful to see. This is the activity, so it shows you all the times that we've done something. As you can see, I love my emojis, right? So hello recorded demo v2. That means this is actually the last change that we did, right? Overview. Let's see if it worked. There should be also something that allows you to see details, maybe. Yes, bingo. Created one, deleted one, updated one. It seems like we're happy. And now let's get to the most beautiful feature ever, the README. What is the README? The README is like a templated README that I've created here. It's very well documented. So this is your README, but as you can see, there are some $outputs.something. These are the Pulumi outputs. So Pulumi stack output. These are all the things that you don't know before that are created by the program, or they are created by Pulumi when it spins up new resources. I've seen some of that as some random stuff. Like, I don't know, this is a random stuff, as you can see. What else? Some other interesting stuff. As you can, I don't know. The script on this is probably timestamp, right? So a number of these things. This is the Kubernetes cluster name, which has a randomic part at the end. So since I don't know them in advance, I create a template in Markdown, which I populate with this variable. Why do I love this? Because then every time something changes, let me find Command H, oops, sorry, I Command H too much. Let me go down here, No, that's not you. Maybe it's here. Oh, yes, it's here. As you can see, this is the project ID. This is the region. It's configuration, so this is just convenient. But if you look at this, this is a GCS bucket and a cluster, which I don't know in advance. It's something that I need Pulumi to create that stuff. This IP address is something I don't know, but it's something that is created by Pulumi. I can just conveniently click here, and this is the Nginx that was pinned up by my Pulumi. So that's awesome, because you can put all your perma URLs or perma URL, and you can even say, oh, this is my Kubernetes cluster, or this is my Cloud Build trigger. So I have everything conveniently in a page that links to all the stuff that I care about. This is my Kubernetes cluster, and this is my trigger pages. As you can see, the last trigger worked correctly, so we are happy. So I think in this demo, I demonstrated that a Pulumi app will work. And what if I do Pulumi app? You could say, oh, nothing happens because it's the same state, right? Actually, my script does something mischievous. It adds something just because I love to play with stuff, right? I want to say, what if my cloud build in the cloud does something slightly different? And it creates cloud build executing script at date on hostname, version script version. Git last, it also pulls the last Git message. How cool would that be? And that's what it does. In fact, if I run it here, it says, whoa, 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 wait a second, Riccardo. The favorite color is white and black is the coat of armor of Ghent, and not it's all orange here in the cloud. And those 4 cloud build things are there. So that means that the cloud build in the cloud mischievously did something. How did it do it? Well, let me show you a little bit of the code here, just for curiosity. The YAML file just says the environment variables, and that does cd, chmod, and execute. So it's very stupid. Like this, just like the cloud build YAML just say, hey, cloud build, execute this file. The file v1, because Ringo asked me to complicate my code, and I tried and I failed. So that's the v2 code, which is still not working, but will next year, I promise you. So this is the script version, and here I configure the project, the region, the folder, a lot of things that I give a variable from. This is the config set cloud build. And this is where I set the favorite color. Basically, until here, I'm setting all the variables that are needed locally, but that I take from the variable that, so these variables don't change, right? Whereas from now on, so let's call it this way. Part 1, retrieve existing variables, but nothing changes. Part 2, I mischievously change things in the cloud. And this is to this Pulumi config here. Because actually the favorite color, I'm also doing that. So this is me testing cloud and local conflicting on something, and I prefer to test on something like my favorite color rather than something useful, right? So it's me learning this stuff. Okay, so shall I do yes? No, doesn't really matter. Okay, so that is the end of the demo, and let's go back to the slides to understand what's going on here and what I learned. So what did I learn? Number 1, who builds the builders? And since I like Latin, I made it easy. It's also qui edificantes or edes, but yeah, I think it's easy to understand this way. So I am making the mistake, or I'm doing the crazy thing of creating a GitHub repo with inside a trigger, where I deploy the trigger itself, and the trigger builds the stuff. So I'm basically, the trigger is code that I Pulumi up, but it's also code that executes the Pulumi app. What can possibly go wrong with this, right? So when I do Pulumi app here, I push the code there, easy peasy, no conflicts. But when I do a git push, the code from the last version will execute the new code, which maybe changes itself, right? I could lock myself out from the repo. I could destroy itself, like, you know. Luckily, there is the first part. The first part will always work because I'm decoupling the code from the trigger. But here, the trigger executes code which could change the trigger. So God knows what will happen in the next invocation. It's something you need to be careful of, right? So what can possibly go wrong? Well, you could change the name of it, and all of a sudden you will have orphans. You could desync from build trigger and build script. So yeah, some things could be wrong, right? So as a corollary, I would say meta builder, so having cloud build that configures itself, so having code that changes code that configures itself in the cloud is complicated. This is the main reason why I failed what my colleague Ringo asked me to do. So he said, like, why don't you refactor in a component? And he gave me all the resources. I started making a component, and I said, okay, now instead of 1 cloud build trigger, I will create 4, and I want to run them all in the cloud. And so this build trigger would create 4 of them. And the moment you start creating something that builds itself and other stuff, and the other stuff tries to build itself from one project into another project. And I had a lot of state conflict, like, oh, whoa, yes, those things shouldn't use the same Pulumi state. So the next step is, okay, now I will have a different Pulumi environment for each one of the builders, because now I have an array of builders and each one does whatever they want. I'm basically creating Skynet, right? So that was hard. That was last Thursday and Friday, and after 3 days of failing, and I still didn't build this slide. I said, you know what? I'm just going back to the safe bet. I'm going to slide on that, and then I'm going to keep it for our next talk. And next time, instead of doing a component for Cloud Build, I will do a component for, I don't know, a SQL, Cloud SQL, so a database as a service, which is my next component. That doesn't have this kind of self meta building kind of problem, so that we should be much easier to build. So I can have in a single project 5 of them, and they will all beautifully work without conflicting with each other. Oh, this is a mistake from the past. Sorry about this. Oh, which is why I was always bad at writing compilers. Sorry, this is a mistake. Yes. I wanted to make a humility joke that probably is not going to land well, but yes. Meta builders are hard, which is why I was always bad at writing compilers and interpreters at university. I always failed on that. My last lesson learned is do not check in your credential on Git by mistake. Sorry, of course, we will all make mistakes. So last Friday, Riccardo, are you coming for lunch with us? Not now. I just realized that I just pushed this in the cloud and it's clear text. Okay, let me fix that. Luckily, after half an hour, I noticed that I also received an email. For some reason, I noticed by myself. But actually, Pulumi told me, hey, buddy, you checked in this thing, maybe worth rotating. Rotating was pretty easy. The only thing that was difficult to do was I destroyed the credential, so now any hacker cannot hack my code. Beautiful. Next step, create a new credential. Third step, I inject the credential into the state and I push it with PulumiMagmt. It works. For some reason, the Cloud Build trigger in the cloud didn't pick them up. It will still have the old ones. And again, this is probably the fact that is this thing that it auto builds itself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I try to do PulumiMagmt 3 times in a row, because when something don't work, you just do it 3 times, and the third time usually it works, right? But even after 3 times, it didn't work, and I don't know why. So anyway, I changed it in the cloud, and then it works in the UI that I showed you here, where you just do, trigger. You click here, and then I edit it in here, and then it would work. So yeah, this is my last lesson learned. Thank you. In case you're curious to clone the code, it's here. I also wrote a Medium, so if you Google Riccardo Carlesso Cloud Build Pulumi, you will probably find the first article on Medium. Just one thing about my lessons learned. I started writing the code for a component which kind of worked. I mean, the code worked, but it just didn't work well with Cloud Build. So the code of the half-baked solution is here. I have the Cloud Build v2 code here. Everything is kind of working, just doesn't work well with Cloud Build, if you know what I mean. But I abstracted everything in a component, and to prove you that I'm not lying to you, I can actually show you in my stacks. I should have a Cloud Build. Oh, this one here. I can show you this dev Ghent updated staging Ghent, I think. Sorry about this. So you can see, oh, these are 0 resources. So let me check something with resources. Okay, so this has some resources. Okay, so I know what is not working here. This is when, as I told you, I would have competing cloud builds that would fight with each other. So what I ended up doing is I would tell staging Ghent, for example, to say, hey, create a temp new stack based on yourself with an array of cloud. So if I have 5 cloud builds, that will create 5 temp staging Ghent. Initially, it was temp 1, 2, 3, but then I realized that different stages could collide, so I needed to call it with staging and dev. So now I have one with this and one with the other. But if I have 5, it will work with 5 as well. So that was a lot of learning. And as I said, I couldn't do it in 3 days. Hopefully, I will do it in my next iteration. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or in my brand new website, which I set up in the weekend. So yeah, all brand new. Thanks, everyone. And that was it. Now I will hear from questions.